Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Global Footballer Podcast. I am Monish and with me is Deepak. We love the beautiful game and have started this podcast as fans. We hope to engage with a few people who love football as much as we do. So today we shall first talk about the big question in everyone's minds. What is going to happen in the Premier League this year? Will this Arsenal team finally pip Manchester City and do what the Invincibles did? Will Manchester City have the drive to succeed this year after finally reaching the promised land of the Champions League? Will Liverpool and Klopp strike back with a revamped midfield? Will Manchester United with Eric Ten Hag reach the summit in the second year? Will Newcastle United, Tottenham Hotspur or a surprise team do a Leicester? We can only predict. So here we are with our predictions for this year. Over to you, Deepak.
Thank you, Monish. Just to be clear and to be transparent, we have a vested interest in this. So, as you can probably see, I'm a Newcastle United fan and Monish is a Manchester United fan. So, we are always looking out for our teams, and it's quite a surprise that we both get along well, considering we are from these above-mentioned teams. But we've watched football for a long time together, and we've enjoyed football for a long time together as friends when we just want to share it with you all. So, just getting on to predictions, Monish, give me your bottom three. Who are the teams that are going to get relegated?
You know, Deepak, there was a time when we probably got along because Manchester United and Newcastle never really shared the same spot in the table.
We did. When we started watching football for the first couple of years, probably just 2002 to 2004. After that, it's all been downhill for me.
Exactly. Anyway, so congrats to Newcastle. You guys are back. So basically, my three teams possibly being relegated for this year. I think Sheffield United, Wolves and Luton. What about you?
Okay. So I've got the exact same three teams. Just let me know what are your thoughts behind this? Why did you pick these three teams?
So as we know, every team that does come to the Premier League needs to spend quite a bit. The step up from the Championship to the Premier League is quite steep. Apart from that, most of the teams that do make it have a significant, have a style of play that probably brings them apart or something of that sort. Luton Town got in by the skin of their teeth. Beautiful story, but I don't really think they are spending enough, and I think they do not really have the quality in the squad. Let's be honest. I never thought they would make it, even when they were in the playoffs. I didn't think they would make it, but they did. Wolves. Every single day you hear one news after another. That's probably disheartening. I don't think even the change of coaching, I'm not really sure they know where they are going. I think that club is in deep trouble. Sheffield United. So this was a question between Sheffield United and Everton. I decided on Sheffield United. I think Everton is just going to make it because of the sheer fact that I think Everton should be in the Premier League. But yeah. That's about it. There's a lot of gut in my predictions. Let me tell you that. A lot of gut, a lot of belief, a lot of hope. Deepak is more of a stats guy, but yeah, that's it. What about you, Deepak?
Well, I don't think I'm a great stats guy, but I agree with you for all three teams because of largely the same reasons you talked about. I think Wolves are a club in turmoil currently, changing Julian Lopetegui 6 days before the start of the season is really not going to end well. The only positive for them, as far as I can see, is they've hired Gary O'Neill, who is familiar with this sort of a situation. He did a very similar miraculous rescue act last season for Bournemouth, and perhaps he can do it again with Wolves. But it's asking too much, but that's probably the only positive. Sheffield have sold all their best players. They've sold Sander Berge as well, who I personally rate really highly. I think he's a really good midfielder and can be a top class or at least a mid-table Premier League midfielder. They've sold him as well. And Luton, it's a wonderful sentimental story of how they came into the Premier League, and I'm all for it. I think their stadium especially is a throwback to earlier years, but I think they just don't have the quality to survive in the Premier League. They'll probably just go down after spending a lot to get their stadium up to Premier League specification. And that problem means they won't be able to even play any home matches for the first few weeks of the Premier League season. That coupled with the lack of quality, I just don't see them surviving.
People are gonna say we do not have any sense of romance, but I mean, just saying the hard truth here, guys. That's it. What about the next?
Well, people would have probably realized we haven't tipped one of the championship clubs to go down, so perhaps sentimentalism and romanticism is alive after all.
Hopefully. Let's say. What about let's see, I mean, the teams that will be possibly in the relegation mix. Who are your 15, or let's say 14, 15, 16 and 17?
Okay, so I'll go from 17 upwards.
Okay.
I've got 17th as Everton.
Okay.
And I think the only reason I have them staying up is because I think there'll be 3 worse teams than them. It's not because I think Everton is going to have a good season themselves. They've been flirting with relegation every single season for the last 2 to 3 years, and it's only a matter of time before it gets too much and they go
Before
down.
they do a Newcastle.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I agree with you completely. Before, there's no such thing as too big a club to go down, as Newcastle have found out ourselves a couple of times in the last 20 odd years. Even Sunderland, I think they're quite a big club, and they did the same sort of scenario where they flirted with relegation year after year, didn't fix anything, and they eventually went down. And they've still not come back up. So that's where I think Everton is going to be.
Typical Newcastle United fan. I see something about Newcastle. He tries to throw shade on his Tyne-Wear neighbours. Huh?
Exactly, yeah. So I have to bring Sunderland into a conversation about relegation, that's for sure. Now, I think 16th I have Bournemouth, 15th I have Nottingham, and 14th I have Fulham. I think all of these clubs are interchangeable, to be honest. Bournemouth, I feel is probably going to have a better season than others, perhaps, but I'm still not entirely sure how the manager change will work for them. Gary O'Neill did pull them out of the trenches last season. I'm not sure whether that'll be the same this year. I think they might suffer from that sort of a relapse of going from a coach who was up against it and was willing to do his best with very little resources. Justin Kluivert is a great signing, but I don't think anything much beyond that. Nottingham, second season syndrome, I think, is going to get to them possibly. But again, there are 3 worse teams in the division, I feel, so they'll probably stay up as well. Fulham, it looks like Saudi Arabia is on a personal mission to take all of Fulham's best players. What about you, Monish?
So yeah, about Everton, I totally agree. I have kept them up on 17th only because I think the other teams will find it more difficult, and Everton probably has a bit of experience in staying up only because of that.
And Sean Dyche.
Sean Dyche. Yeah, Dyche ball probably works to get you 17th, 15th, 16th, I guess. I'm not sure. Yeah. Bournemouth had, I think, a bad end to last season. They lost the last 4 games. I don't see them do much. They have got Justin Kluivert. He scored 8 goals and 2 assists last year, and they have put in I mean, they have spent a bit of money, but I'm not really sure where this team is going. Will be there, but actually,
There's also this rumor now of West Ham being interested in Dominic Solanke. If they sell Solanke, then I don't know where the goals are going to come from.
Exactly.
I think he had 6 goals and 7 assists last season, so double figures for goal contributions in a Bournemouth team is quite impressive. 44 goals in the championship in the 2 seasons before that. So if they lose him, I think they're then probably prime candidates for relegation as well.
Exactly. So the thing about Bournemouth is I still think they might, because there are 3 more teams. Unlike you, there are 3 more teams I have put below Bournemouth. All right, 17 is Everton. I still think 16 might be Crystal Palace.
Right.
I know this. They say it's a well-coached team. They have their style. They have a couple of really good attackers and all of that. But I'm not very convinced with where they're going. I think Zaha was the talisman. Yes, Eze is there. Yes, they have a couple of really good players. But I have some doubts on how they'll go. And especially we have seen quite a few times. I'm not very sure that that they will be. They're probably in the mix of the relegation. I think they will be there. Other club that I am worried about is Brentford. I've put them at number 15.
Okay.
The reason being, Tony isn't going to be there till January, I think, isn't it? And David Raya is also going to go out on loan. So that is going to affect them. They have got Romeo Beckham, if that's going to help. They've gotten Kevin Shade, but I'm not really sure how this is going to work out for them. So actually my 17 is Everton, 16 is Crystal Palace, and 15 is Brentford.
Okay. Whom do you have as 14?
Nottingham Forest again.
Okay.
So these four clubs, I think, actually these 5 clubs. On 13 I have Bournemouth. These 5 clubs are going to be somewhere in the relegation mix.
Right.
Anything can change for them. Like Solanke going, maybe Bournemouth will go all the way down. Actually, I was wondering if he goes down. Yes, he's number 16, but otherwise he's still there. Crystal Palace, something about them, something about the structure, something about how they played last season doesn't really work with me. I'm not very sure of them for some reason. As I said, I go by gut. And Nottingham Forest, they did well last season with 20 new odd players. That was a fantastic thing that they managed to do. 20 new odd players, and they managed to play like a team. The second half of the season, they did well. They might do better this season. That's why I put them at 14. But they still do not really have a crux of a team. They look like they finally know what direction they're going in. So that is there. There's no crazy signings like Lingard and all of that. So I think that might be good.
And they haven't signed 20 odd players this year, which is always an improvement last year.
Exactly. And they bought 20 odd players, and some were statement signings, some were. I mean, it was just a lot of hodgepodge.
Yeah.
So that's it. So 17 Everton, 16 Crystal Palace, 15 Brentford, 14 Nottingham Forest, 13 Bournemouth. Who's your number 13?
I've got Burnley at number 13. I think they've got a really exciting project going on there with Company. And I think they play very un-Burnley-esque football, at least un-Burnley-esque over the last few years where Sean Dyche has been there. But I think because of Company and the signings that they have and the type of football that they play, I think they are the most suited club from the Championship to stay up. And anything in mid-table, even 13th above, will be an amazing season. Honestly, I think their only ambition should be staying up this season, because that's your predominant goal as with any club coming up from the Championship, as Monish has clearly mentioned, I know well about. But any club coming from the Championship, the primary goal should be to stay up, and I think Burnley have those tools at their disposal, and they can do well with the type of football that they want to play and the ambition that Company has. Who do you have from 11th and 12th?
So basically, as you know, I haven't mentioned Burnley yet. Number 12 is one of the clubs that you think will... your number 14, basically, it's Fulham. Again, I probably think Crystal Palace is going to do worse. I think Brentford is going to do worse. I think Fulham is also a club that's going to be significantly worse this season. But I'm not really sure where in the mix they'll happen, because I think Fulham and Bournemouth are somewhere around there, 12th. No, that rut.
I've got Brentford and Crystal Palace at 11 and 12. I think Brentford will suffer from Ivan Toney not playing and losing David Raya.
But I think they will only drop 2 places with that.
I think they're getting Toney back in December. So 3 months into the season, they're getting Toney back. I think December he can start training. Possibly he might return in December, but practically speaking, it might be January. But even then, I think he will be available for more games than what he's not available for. It's not like they've sold him and they've lost him completely. So Ivan Toney is going to play a role at some point in the season. And David Raya, I think it's a loss, but I think they can replace him for... and Thomas Frank, I think, is a really good coach. I think he's very underrated.
I think they have gotten someone from Germany, isn't it? Flecken, to replace David Raya. They already were planning on that.
I think it's difficult to say how he'll adapt to the Brentford style of playing football, because they do want to play out from the back, and David Raya was exceptionally good at that, which is one of the reasons that Arsenal have signed him. But all things considered, I think it will be difficult to say how they all fit into Thomas Frank's vision. But I do think Thomas Frank is a really good coach. I think he can find solutions around it, and part of that solution, I think, will be Mbeumo. Mbeumo played quite well last season, but he wasn't having the end product. I think playing in a more forwardish role in which he can be given more freedom to do what he wants. I think he will. I rate him really highly, and I think he is going to probably come in with a lot of goals and assists this season for Brentford.
That's an interesting point. There are times when strikers probably curtail a few players around them because they ask the ball so much. I mean, Henry was saying that he felt he was asking the ball all the time when he was at Arsenal towards the end of his career. Ruud van Nistelrooy, I think Cristiano Ronaldo, I mean, this is not even comparable, but Cristiano Ronaldo blossomed once he was a bit out. He went out of the picture to Real Madrid.
We'll do 8, 9, 10. That's okay. So I've got West Ham as in 10th place. So we'll discuss West Ham. West Ham, Spurs in 9th, and Brighton in 8th is what I have.
Mm-hmm. And why West Ham? What do you think? What do you think makes them 11th or 10th this season compared to the season they had last year?
I think losing Rice is obviously a major blow, but I think they are being smart about replacing him, because I don't think you can replace a player like Rice 1-to-1. You can't just get a direct replacement for Rice because he's so good in so many different areas of the game. So I think they're being smart in trying to replace him with Edson Alvarez, whom I think is an exceptional player coming in from Ajax, and two with Ward-Prowse, who are both they can probably do a defensive part and the attacking part of the game complement each other quite well.
It's confirmed,
rumor that Edson Alvarez is, I think, having a medical right now, and Ward-Prowse is they have an agreement with Southampton. The only player whom does not make sense to me there is the potential link to McTominay. I have no idea why he's so sought after. I have no idea why Manchester United placed a £50 million or anything above even £30 million on his head. I think he's exceptionally overrated. And I have no idea why David Moyes is going for him, except for the fact that he's Scottish.
I think West Ham should really take McTominay for 55 million.
Yeah, you would say that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I really want Manchester United to really pull on over somebody. Honestly, I'm just tired of it. But they have. I mean, there's a deal. Looks like it's going to take place. There are reports coming that Harry Maguire is going to West Ham.
Oh yeah, Harry Maguire is also going, which I think is a decent, sensible signing.
It's a smart move. I mean, I'm a United fan. I used to hate him because he didn't work for our system. Especially because of the fact that we had a goalkeeper who never came out and he was too slow to track back. Harry Maguire has a few very good strengths. He's good in a three-man defense. His weakness is he looks a little clumsy, and his pace. He has no pace, and that never worked out with the way we played, because we kept losing balls and he could not track back. He didn't have the pace for it. He is a strong person. He's really good at passing. He's got decent vision. He played like he used to be an Iron Man before. I mean, honestly, he played quite a lot of games. I think one season he played the maximum number of games and all of that. So Harry Maguire has become a meme, but he is good. Whenever a mistake is committed by him, it always comes into into focus. But
sharp focus.
At times that mistake is because of bad positioning elsewhere, because someone else is not doing their job. Because the style of play is compromised, because the style of play does not suit him.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
And West Ham, what Declan Rice used to do is he had multiple attributes. He was fantastic. He used to cover, he used to run back, he used to screen well, but he also had a decent forward pass. Maguire can move the ball from defense to attack, and that's important too. So Harry Maguire was a good player. He was in the wrong Manchester United team. First, he was with Ole, who was trying a sort of a mishmash. Anyways, let's not get. They will get there when it's Manchester United. But Harry Maguire is a decent signing. I still agree on 30 million. He's a good signing. McTominay, uh, he has always been a bit more rated because because he's not used as much as he is, I think there is this promise that he can be really good if this happens, if he gets the right system. He has goals in him. He does. He's a decently good midfielder. There's no doubt about that. But I don't know if he's a 55 million midfielder. Bruno Fernandes was a 55 million midfielder, so there's no comparison there. Yeah.
Okay. I agree with you. On that. I don't think he is anywhere close to that amount of money. But
Yes.
I don't think, honestly, even Rice is worth 100 million. So it's every team. I mean, when the top tier players go for hundreds, the average sort of players or the mid tier players go for 50 or 40. So that's what happens.
Look, I think also what happens is it depends on the fit. If a team really needs somebody like Rice and they think, okay, getting him will completely sort out their issues. Arsenal lost Xhaka. They really needed somebody to fix all their issues. I mean, fix those issues. And they think that Rice, and honestly, on paper, anyone will say Rice is going to fix all the problems that they had last season.
Yeah,
I mean, it does
I
look
think
like
so too. I think
he's going
Rice
to make
is
them
going
much
to be
better.
Yeah, I think he is going to be their talisman. But
Was Van Dijk? Now Van Dijk, Liverpool spent so much on Van Dijk a few seasons ago, but it was money well spent. It was a lot for a defender, but that completely changed them.
yeah,
Alisson, Van Dijk completely changed the way they. I mean, they had two glaring holes, and they just went in and got the best person for their team, for their style of play. So that's
agree.
what it is at the end of the day, I think. Anyway, moving on.
Moving on.
Where
Where are we? Yes, ninth. I've got Spurs. Whom do you
ninth
have as
Spurs.
ninth, Monish?
So my number 10 is Burnley. you put them all the way up till 13. I went ahead and I'm like, yeah, they're going to do a Fulham. They're going to do a full Fulham. So first 10 last season, Burnley is going to be 10 this season. Company is going to do amazing. And they had 100 odd points. They must be brimming with confidence. They had an interestingly aggressive style of play. Hopefully this works. This can also fall flat unless, in the Premier League, Company has to be a bit more pragmatic. He can't be as free-flowing, as aggressive as he is. And this was a team that really didn't do well in the previous seasons before he came in and completely changed the face of that team. So they have done well. They have bought well. They seem to be knowing what they're doing. I think, yeah. So
good.
Let's see.
Whom do you have finishing ninth?
Ninth is... for you, it was who? Who did you have?
Mine was Spurs.
Okay, and 8 was?
8 was Brighton.
Okay, my 9 is Brighton. And 8 is Aston Villa.
Okay, sure. So whom do you wanna? Let's talk about Brighton first then.
Yes.
What do you think about Brighton? Are they gonna do a similar sort of season, or are they gonna fall off?
See, even if they do a similar sort of season, there were a couple of things that did happen last season. Tottenham wasn't as good as they normally are. Liverpool weren't as good as they normally are. Okay, obviously they ended up ahead of them. Chelsea was nowhere in the picture. Last season, Chelsea was in 12th place. I think both of us have Chelsea ahead of them.
Yeah.
So this is the reason they're going down. I don't expect a big drop off in their form. I expect them to play well, play decent football, play good football, stick to their style, do well, do all the things right. They haven't bought some really big players. They bought João Pedro. Let's see how that works. They might be losing their midfield. They might be losing McAllister. I mean, they've lost McAllister. They might be losing Caicedo. Let's see what happens there. But I think Brighton will... they're a smart club. They always buy well. They'll always figure out what they're doing and they'll get the right people. That belief is still there. But the fact that the other teams are going to be much better, and there's no doubt that Chelsea will do better. I think Tottenham is going to do much better if Harry Kane stays. Now, there are a lot of ifs and buts in this particular setup that I have put in, for my standings, my predictions. But yeah, let's see how that goes. What about you?
I think Brighton's probably going to do decent this season. I think the worry is obviously with regards to European football. Will they be able to manage that along with the squad
that's
that they
thing.
have? I think that's going to be a big problem for them, as well as losing players like McAllister, potentially Caicedo. Brighton are great at bringing in unknown gems and making them superstars, but I feel that sort of a plan will fall off the tracks at some point. But the good thing for Brighton is they have a whole system in place which is geared around finding gems and a manager, most importantly, who can get the best out of them. I think De Zerbi is a fantastic manager. Is thinks out of the box. Always has really good systems in place and really good tactics. In-game management is excellent. I think De Zerbi is probably the biggest reason why I think they will continue to do well. On top of all the problems that they have that we mentioned.
Yeah,
Spurs at 9.
it's a bit sorry
just
9.
below Brighton actually.
Yeah, that's kind of. I mean, okay.
I'm accounting for Harry Kane leaving. That's basically why I have them at 9, and I think if he leaves, I don't think they'll struggle to even finish top 10 potentially. So I'm being probably nice to them by putting them 9th, considering the fact I'm expecting Kane to leave. The reason why I'm expecting Kane to leave is because Bayern Munich are a massive club. They know how to do business, and they wouldn't be sticking around putting in multiple bids if there weren't indications from both the player and the club that they'll be willing to sell at a particular price. They are playing hardball, obviously, trying to get the price down as much as possible. But I think they wouldn't be still at it if there weren't clear indications from both the player and the club that they'd be willing to do business at some point. And I think Bayern need this. I think it's been put to their fan base as Harry Kane is really keen on joining Bayern. Bayern are extremely confident of landing Harry Kane. I think if at the end of all this, if they don't end up signing him, it'll look really bad on the board. And this is a board which has been elected quite recently into power.
Yes.
After Oliver Kahn and all that fiasco happened. So I think they need this win. And I think it's a matter of getting that number right. And I think they will probably find that sooner rather than later. If there was no indication from the player and the club and Tottenham that they'd be willing to sell Kane, I think they would have moved on to other targets by now. The fact that they're still sticking around, I think, means they probably will sell him at some point. And the rest of the team, I think, will find it difficult with Kane gone to. I don't think Richarlison is a 30-goal a season player. Far from it. Maddison is a good improvement. I think he's a really good player on the ball. But there are still reservations about his game off the ball, how his work rate is, lots of other things about Maddison. I think all those combined, I think it might be a difficult season for Spurs if Harry Kane leaves.
So
what about you on Spurs, Monish?
So I have Spurs on 6th, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, I have them on 6th.
What do you think about them for the next season?
I have them on 6th. The reason being Spurs basically, finally, they look like they're getting out of that. You know, they had this great time with Pochettino and they never let go of those players. There was another Harry always in the team, Winks, and finally I think they let go of him. They sold him, isn't it, this season? They let go of him at least. As far as I know, he's no longer with them. Kulusevski.
Harry Winks, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, Harry Winks is playing for Leicester.
That's what I said. So finally, they're basically just getting out of a lot of players who were there from the Pochettino era. They are moving on. They're moving on in terms of the goalkeeper. They have finally. I feel that they finally let go of a lot of those players. I think Kane. So the thing about Kane is, yes, Bayern Munich, like you said, they would really know something, and there's some news that the upper management, the owners of Spurs, want them to not lose Harry Kane for nothing. All of that is true. It's there. I assume that maybe. I was just assuming if probably Manchester United managed to sell McTominay and then just put in a bet for Harry Kane, then the next day I'm sure he'll be in Bayern Munich. That's one way to look at it. But if Harry Kane stays, I think they'll do well because of the fact that finally they look like they're letting go. Finally, they look like they have structure again. They were buying players who were average what they were doing was they were buying average players for less money. United was buying average players for a lot of money, and sometimes they would strike gold. They haven't bought anyone who was. They had multiple midfielders who were all good but not great. So it wasn't really working well for them. They were still relying on Kane and sometimes Son to really create something. Madison, whatever said and done, he's a bit streaky, but he's good. He is a good creative player. There's no doubt about that. I think there seems to be finally a vision to their transfer market buying. Otherwise, what Spurs would do is if another team wanted a player, they would see if they could probably hijack that deal. I don't know. I just felt, it always felt that someone saw a player, said, okay, it's 2 million too much, I don't want this deal, and they will go get that player. Quite a few times they have done that. They have hijacked other clubs' deals. They have done, not hijacked. Someone else is interested. Yeah, even we want to be interested. And now it looks like, yes, we want this player. We got this player. It looks a bit more focused in their transfer strategy. Let's see what happens. I think they'll do well. They'll do better this season. But yes, if Harry Kane is out, it will affect them. But I think in the long term, this club finally looks like it has a direction, because they were trying to just win with Harry Kane, trying a lot of things, and maybe it'll be good for both of those clubs. I know you want Harry Kane out because you don't want Shearer's record to be broken.
Well, so that's always a personal selfish reason.
Maybe he will run down this year of his contract just to take revenge on Spurs, and then finally join Manchester United, score a lot of goals, and then break Shearer's record in a Manchester United jersey.
Well, there are lots of journalists who say that is his plan, essentially, to join Bayern, get a lot of titles under his belt, like over 1 or 2 years, and then come back to the Premier League with a big club like Manchester United or even Newcastle. Who knows? At that time, we might need a striker. Either way, his plan is to return to the Premier League in a year or two to break the record. That is seemingly his plan, but who knows? So whom do you have as 5, 6, 7? Monish?
No, that was my 6. I had 9 Brighton. What about who did you have in 8 again? It was.
I had Brighton.
Okay, and at 7?
I have Liverpool at 7.
Okay.
Manchester United at 6.
All right.
And Aston Villa at 5.
Okay, so let's do it that way. So my number 8 is Aston Villa.
Yep.
Okay, 7 is Chelsea. 6 is Spurs. We already spoke about them, and 5 is Newcastle.
Okay, fair enough. So let's talk about Aston Villa then.
Okay, sure.
Why do you have them picked for 8? And I'll tell you why I have picked them far higher up at 5.
Aston Villa. I just think basically I think they'll do as well as they did. I think they have Europe this year, and
yep.
I think that's gonna affect them quite a bit. But more importantly, it's not like I've dropped them. I just dropped them one place from last season. I think they're gonna be ahead of Brighton. Why I have put them at 8 is because Chelsea came up. All right, I expect Chelsea to do really well this season. 7, I know it's not that great. People are putting them right in the top 4. But I think Chelsea is going to be this club that's basically going to figure out how they've removed a lot of players that they didn't want. At least it's very clear on what they're doing. He was going around buying a lot of players, but I think he just wanted his own squad. He's bought all of them with long-term contracts. He's bet that the salaries are going to double or triple maybe in 2 or 3 years, and he's having them on long-term contracts. That may or may not work. Never worked with Kepa. Yeah, never worked with Kepa, but worked with Harry Kane for Spurs. I think this season they're going to do much better. My thing with Aston Villa is they're going to do as good. They are going to have some effect because of the fact that they're going to play in Europe quite a lot. But I think there are clubs that are going to do much better. Chelsea is going to be ahead of them.
I think Aston Villa is probably going to finish quite high up in the table for me. And I have them as 5th in the table and finishing above Manchester United, if you have noticed. The only reason I have them that high up is because I think they have probably had the best transfer window of any team, bar Arsenal perhaps. They brought in Moussa Diaby, whom I rate very highly. I think he's an exceptional right winger. I think they'll contribute a lot in the attacking sense. They've also brought in Pau Torres, and they've done some free signings like Tielemans, who although he wasn't playing at his best in Leicester last season, we know he's a really capable player, and they have lots of other midfielders who can take turns around that role. I think, and on top of that, Unai Emery, I think, is an exceptionally good coach. I think he's very underrated, which has always been a problem. Even the last Arsenal stint that he had, he was hounded out. But I think if he was given time, he would have probably brought Arsenal to a really good level.
If you notice, there were a lot of good things that Emery did that the fruits Arteta got off, especially with player recruitment and all of that.
Yeah.
Aston Villa, I agree. Pau Torres, he was someone who was always linked to United. I thought he was the next Enzo Perez, always being linked, never coming. Tielemans didn't have a decent season. Moussa Diaby, yes. Unai Emery, I rate very highly. I just don't know if this is the season they're going to go up. I think by next season they'll be fighting for Champions League if things go fine. I just don't know if it's this season because of the fact that they're going to have Europe as well, and that's going to be quite... Europe takes a toll on you. If you notice, many a times the club goes into the top 4 and then they are out because of the fact that Champions League and Europa League and all of that, it takes a toll on the players.
Fair.
Yeah, that's what. So that's the thing about Europe. Chelsea at number 7. Spurs I discussed already at number 6. Newcastle at 5.
Do you want to talk about Chelsea first, and then we can go to Newcastle?
Chelsea, yeah. I mean, that's what I told you my thoughts on Chelsea. I think you should elaborate on your ideas on Chelsea. Where do you have them?
I have them very high up the table in the top 4.
I see that.
We can get to the top 4 later.
Okay, so let's talk about someone else.
I have them in the top 4, but the reason why I have Chelsea high up is because I think the system and this plan of completely revamping the team, getting all the old established players out and bringing in a virtually new squad fits in well to Pochettino's strengths. He's excellent at bringing younger players through, coaching them, playing a system which suits everything that he has. I think this fits Pochettino really well, and player power is not going to be an issue in Chelsea at this point. Also, I do think Clear Lake Capital, their owners, do have a long-term vision, which will probably again fit into Pochettino, give him a bit more time. That all this coupled with some really good players that they've signed, I think Jackson is a really good player. I think Mudryk will probably come into his own this season. Enzo Fernandez is a really good central midfielder, and I think they're probably going to sign a couple more midfielders. Caicedo and Tyler Adams probably will come in as well. Reece James, Disasi.
He's the captain. I think he's
Reece James
been captain.
has been named the captain today. I think they've got a lot of players around who Pochettino can do a lot of things with them, and I think it plays to his strength really well. That all this combined with the fact that they do not have Europe and can solely focus on the league means I think they will finish in the top 4.
That's a very good point. Chelsea can do really well because of the fact they don't have Europe. They have really good quality players. There's no doubt about that. But again, this is a squad that hasn't really spent much time together again.
Okay.
The same thing that we spoke about Wolves last season. That is the only reason I think they need one more year to bed in.
I agree with you. It can go one of two ways. It can go disastrously bad.
I mean, 7. Honestly, I don't see them finish 7. They are gonna finish 4th, or they're gonna finish 14th, maybe.
Possibly.
It's somewhere there. So we're done with Chelsea. Deepak thinks they'll end up, I think, 3rd, isn't it? 3rd.
Yeah, in the top 4. We haven't talked about our top 4 predictions yet, but we'll talk about it when we come up to the top 4.
I'm slightly worried that Newcastle is suddenly going to find itself in first place here. Okay, let's go to Newcastle. You can start with...
Sure. So
where do you have them?
I've got Newcastle in number 4, Manchester United at 6, and Liverpool at number 7. So the reason why I've got Newcastle in the top 4 is quite biased, to be honest. I think Eddie Howe's a exceptionally good manager, and I think he's underrated very highly in the media. People just keep thinking of him as that bloke got Bournemouth relegated. Well, people didn't consider that same person got Bournemouth from 4th division up to the Premier League and kept them in the Premier League for 5 years after that. He's doing an incredible job. When he took over Newcastle, nobody had survived from there in the Premier League ever. And not only did he keep us up, he took us to close to a top 10 finish and followed that up with a top 4 finish. So I think he's our biggest strength. And we've got Tonali, Harvey Barnes, and Livermento in, who are all really good players. I do think we need a centre back and left back for sure, but I'm hopeful at least one of those positions will be filled in by the end of the transfer.
You could try 40 million, hijack a deal, and get Harry Maguire. Just saying.
Sorry, no, thank you.
Okay. You really think Tonali is going to work well?
I think he is, but I think he's going to need to learn the system first, because Eddie Howe is quite insistent that anybody coming into the team needs to be very familiar with the system before he puts them into his first 11. He did the same with Bruno Guimaraes when we were literally battling relegation, and he still put Guimaraes on the bench and asked him to learn the system for 4 to 6 weeks before he made him a consistent starter. So I don't think he's going to put Tonali in right from the off unless he's very happy with how preseason has gone. To be fair, we signed him very early in the transfer window, so he has had 6 weeks already to learn the system. So perhaps that might be a reason to put him right away. But I think he's probably going to take his time. But once he learns the system and once he understands what's expected of him, I think he'll do really well. To answer your question,
you think Tonali will be fine, because Italian midfielders, not all of them, not a really great success rate, especially
but I think that pool of Italian midfielders going outside Italy is very few and far between in itself. The only top tier midfielders who have done that in the last few years has been Marco Verratti to PSG, who has actually been very successful playing in PSG, and probably Jorginho to Arsenal. Beyond that, I do not, off the top of my head, remember a top tier Italian midfielder moving out of Italy. I don't know whether you can help me with that. Once they move out of Italy,
they are no longer... Aquilani was Italian?
Well, Aquilani was not a great player by any metric.
Yeah, but when he came... See, there was always belief that he would turn out to be good. It just didn't really work out. However, there are some players from the Italian league who have done well. Coutinho has done really well. He came from Inter Milan to Liverpool, had some disciplinary issues there. Those things have happened. About Newcastle United...
I don't think Tonali was not a player that I expected Newcastle to get. He's the elite sort of midfielder who was captain of AC Milan, played the semi-final of the Champions League, boyhood Milan fan at 23. He was definitely outside our range.
Not very happy to move out of Milan also.
Yeah, not very happy to move probably out of Milan. But we convinced him. We convinced him that this is a project, and he came. I wasn't expecting him to sign us to sign that sort of a player, but we've got him. I'm hopeful Eddie Howe will fit him in.
What about Harvey Barnes?
Barnes, I think, is the absolute
he has goals in him.
To Alan Saint-Maximin. Yes, he's complete opposite to Alan Saint-Maximin. I'm still quite sad that we sold Saint-Maximin, because I think football has to be a mix of emotion and end result. So it cannot be just the heart or the head. It has to be a mix of both. And Saint-Maximin was pure heart without any end product. He didn't really score many goals. He didn't give a lot of assists. And that was always a problem. He would want to beat a player 4 times over before crossing the ball. And as strikers, it was really infuriating, because you wouldn't expect... You have no idea when the ball's going to come in, whether he'll want to do 10,000 tricks and then cross, or would you just cross first time? Nobody knows.
But he did create things out of nothing at times, and more importantly, he made Newcastle watchable.
Completely agree. I think the only reason why Newcastle is in the Premier League now is because of Saint-Maximin.
Exactly.
Lots of times under Bruce, the only tactic was to give the ball to Saint-Maximin and hope for the best. And he did pull us out more often than not. And
yes, he did.
I'll be forever grateful. But I think the reason is he doesn't fit a structure like Eddie House, wherein there are defined, clear metrics on when you pass, when you cross, how you assist the team, when you
It
press.
doesn't fit any structure.
He doesn't fit any structure exactly. He's just a player who would be amazing when there's no structure, as in Steve Bruce. There was nothing there, so he was free to do whatever the hell he wanted. But in a structured system, he doesn't fit, and I can understand why the club did it, but I'm still sad about it. Harvey Barnes is the exact opposite, because he doesn't look to beat players. He's extremely direct. He scores goals. He scored 13 goals in a poor Leicester team last season, which was incredible, I thought. He also ended up having not very high number of assists, but few assists in himself, and he's done that consistently over the last few years. He's very direct, and I think end product wise, he's a far better player compared to St. Maximin, and I think that's only going to improve us. Liveramento, I think, is a bit weird because we did not need a right back, especially somebody costing 30 million.
Maybe are you going to play him at left back?
I don't think so.
Because you were mentioning about some you didn't have enough cover at left back.
Yeah, we don't really have much cover at left back, but I don't think playing him out of position in left back is an answer, unless somebody wants to play inverted fullbacks or something. But I don't think that's the reason he's been brought in. He's been brought in as a long-term replacement to Kieran Trippier, which I think he is a long-term replacement. That's fine, but I don't think that's something we needed to spend a lot of money on this summer. Perhaps we could have signed him next summer. I don't know. But perhaps the club decided this was the best time to sign him, because if they had tried him next summer, the likes of Chelsea or Liverpool or Man City, who all need right backs, probably in a year or so, that would have made it a lot more complicated. But
Manchester United as well.
Even Manchester United, yeah. So
they could do with some help there, although they have other glaring issues.
True. So I think that's probably why the club bit the bullet this season instead of trying next season. Might have been a far more complicated time to get a right back. I don't know.
What
about you, Monish? Manchester United. Tell me what you feel. What do you think of Newcastle first, and then tell me about Manchester United?
Newcastle, I love Eddie Howe. I think they'll do well. I have them not very low. If I'm not wrong, I think I have them at 5th. Yeah. So
I have them at 4th, and you have them at 5th. So.
Yeah. It's not really much difference. I had Manchester United at 4th. That's the reason, more or less. I think they'll do really well. It's just the fact that they're gonna have Europe this year. They have invested well. They have bought good players, but they have Europe. They didn't have that last year, so that's going to be a distraction. That's going to take some toll on players. The squad is good, but not really huge in terms of its size. So let's see how it goes. But yeah, they might be. I think there'll be a drop off, maybe even 6th for that matter. But yeah, 5th or 6th is where I see them. One more club that we failed to mention, that we forgot to mention, is someone you put on 7 and I have put on 3rd.
Yeah, that's Liverpool. I thought we'll come to them after we talk about Manchester United.
So Manchester United, what do you think first?
So
Why do you have them below the top 4?
I think Manchester United are going to finish 6th because I don't think they have their centre forward position locked in yet, and that was their biggest weakness last year. Højlund is a player for the future, and I can understand the hype around him, but I think Manchester United overpaid quite a bit for him. But he's not. It's unfair to put that pressure on him to lead a club like Manchester United at this age. He should be given time. He should be bedded in slowly, and I don't think that's going to happen this season because they have nobody else. And I think that's going to be the biggest Achilles heel. Also, Eric Ten Hag. The biggest positive regarding him is I think he's a ballsy manager. He can take big calls. He's not scared of taking big decisions. But I think his in-game management is lacking. And I think that's the biggest problem for him as a manager. Perhaps that's something that he will improve over time. But currently I don't see that impact that he's having in terms of tactics in-game and even beforehand. So I think that's a weakness coupled with the lack of centre forward, out and out striker. I think that's why I have Manchester United finishing 6th. What about you? What do you think Manchester United?
For me, Ten Hag is exactly the manager Manchester United need after Solskjaer, after all those years of People not really sure where the club was going. Mourinho at least had an idea what were the players he wanted. After that, what United kept doing was they kept reinvesting in failures. They bought somebody probably overhyped. They bought him for 30-40% more than he was worth. And at the end of the day, what used to happen was, okay, he had a decent end to the season. He played a few good games, be it whoever it was. They again pay for 50% more salary than what they are worth. And this is a problem that they have had for quite some time. They have had this even with Wayne Rooney. Even Sir Alex Ferguson's time, they were being held ransom sometimes because they were very worried that they were losing all their stars. And Manchester United, don't know if it's because of the ownership, because of what reason, what commitments, what compulsions they had. So they did not invest when they should have. And honestly, Wayne Rooney and Sir Alex Ferguson's aura possibly was just helping them after Cristiano Ronaldo left United for a few years. Van Persie came, obviously propped it up a bit, but there were a lot of issues in United. Let's be honest. I think Ten Hag has really changed the way United are perceived. More importantly, he has had the guts to remove Cristiano, to bring about wholesale changes. I don't think Holland is expected to do well. I think Rashford does well without a central striker. I think Holland is one for the future. Onana is going to change the way they're going to play in defense, which is going to be good. De Gea is a fantastic keeper. Onana is going to leak some goals also. But I think it's more about finally bringing an identity to the team. Mount is good. I'm not really sure what exactly is going to happen there. They have Eriksen. They have Bruno Fernandes. So where is Mount going to play between those lines? I'm not really sure. They have Casemiro. What I think is they do have a few players last year. If you notice, last year, Sancho hadn't played much, and when he played, he wasn't really good. He's looking decently okay in preseason, in a few games, at least in few parts of the game. I think he'll do well. I think he'll finally do better. Anthony, I expect him to do a little better as well. All right. So they did have players that did not really do well, who do have quality. They have proven quality. So it's not on Holland that I'm expecting United to do well. I think there are other players that can do well, that can do better, that we haven't really seen. So that is what I expect from United. I don't think, I'm not sure if Eric Ten Hag is going to help United reach number one. But he's exactly the man Manchester United need right now.
Okay, fair enough. Getting the big calls, Eric Ten Hag. Let's talk about Liverpool then. You've got them really high up. You got them finishing
number
third.
three. Number three.
And I've got them finishing seventh. So tell me.
Your heart.
Yeah. Why do you think they're going to finish third?
I'm a Manchester United fan. Obviously, like I did try to reduce the toxicity on football, try to be less emotional about things, and I think that has helped. You know what I'm talking about. I felt that people were getting this is an old conversation that we both had. So I started looking at things in a more open manner, and I realized Liverpool, they were lucky, all right. They had a good team, there's no doubt about that. But for them to win the Premier League, they had to be lucky with injuries. They were lucky that year. But most importantly, I think Jurgen Klopp needs to prove himself. And I think he will try his best this season. What I'm talking about is Manchester United under Sir Alex Ferguson had 4 or 5 great teams. Arsenal under Arsene Wenger had 2 or 3 great teams. Even teams that probably didn't win the Premier League had 2 or 3 great teams under some managers who had dynasties. Pep Guardiola, Manchester City, I think this is his third great team he's building right now. He already had 2 really good teams. Jurgen Klopp has had 1 great team wherever he's gone. I think he's trying to reinvent it. He has tried to change a few things. Yes, the midfield is gutted. He got a couple of players there. He wants to stick to his philosophy. And honestly, this philosophy has worked with really good players. They ended the last season really well. Once they had things sorted out, once the defenders were back in form, I think the niggles were sorted out. They had a really good end to the season. The second half of the season, they almost threatened coming back from nowhere to, they were threatening top 4. So I think they probably will have, this will be the last hurrah of this crop of players. There's still some players from the old team, and I think they will reach third this season.
Okay. Fair
They're
enough.
not going to end up like last season. They're going to come all guns blazing, I think.
The reason why I have Liverpool much further down in 7th is because I think their midfield is decimated completely. They've sold Jordan Henderson, James Milner, Keita
Oxlade.
has gone. Well, he wasn't contributing much anyway. Oxlade-Chamberlain has gone,
Firmino has
and
gone.
Fabinho's gone. So that's
Fabinho's
four
gone.
or five numbers. I'm not saying many of them probably did not contribute a whole lot, but that's 5 solid numbers that you've taken away from midfield, and you've replaced them with McAllister and Soboslai, who are both not great in the defensive sense. They are great players exceptionally in ball progressors. They are great in an attacking role. They're great in a support role, but they are not out and out central defensive midfielders. And going for Romeo Lavia is a smart move, but they've not gotten it done yet. And there's still some holes in that midfield which need to be plugged. And last year it was that midfield which let them down severely. I think overall they've perhaps gone backwards in trying to strengthen that midfield. And if you're not strengthening your weakest area on the pitch and you're actually going backwards in that zone, I think the net outcome is going to be poorer, and that's why I've got them finishing 7th.
I totally agree with you, but again, these players were very injury prone. They weren't contributing much. They weren't really playing so much football. If you see last season, it was also the lack of availability of few of these players. They did change a few things. Trent Alexander-Arnold is finally a midfielder.
Yeah.
I mean, it took him long enough. The whole
yeah.
world told him, every 5-year-old, 6-year-old kid on FIFA told him, put him in midfield, he plays well there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
but
probably he's thinking of Trent in a more central defensive or central midfield role. Well, I don't think he can play a central defensive midfield role.
I don't
with
think he
his
can do anything
back.
with defense, let's be honest.
Yeah, true. But in that right side of midfield, as a central midfield
can do
role,
well.
to whip in the crosses, and I think he's really good. His passing range is exceptional, and I think that's what we're probably thinking of doing. But that still does not account for how they can plug that hole in a central defensive midfield, which is how they tend to leak most of their goals. There's nobody blocking or acting as a shield in front of that defense, which is putting their defense at a much at a significant higher pressure than what they'd like to be under.
I mean, you cannot say he could do a Guardiola and try to convert somebody into central defense. More importantly, actually, as you mentioned, last season, probably Fabinho's form has had more of a bearing on Liverpool, and I mean, him leaving. So it wasn't anything else but Fabinho's form that they lived and died by, and the fact that Trent Alexander-Arnold was out of form, and once he went to midfield, he really thrived in there.
Yeah, so I agreed. Fabinho's form was really...
Yeah, Liverpool. Let's agree. Liverpool can finish 7th. Liverpool can finish 3rd. It's a bit hit or miss. Okay,
I agree with you that Fabinho's form was the reason last year that they suffered, but they've sold Fabinho and then not replaced him with anybody else. In my opinion, that's not an improvement. That's a total downward progression from where they were.
Maybe a change in the style they play, or he might be having something up his sleeve.
Perhaps, let's see.
Yeah.
So, top 2, I think, clear.
Big question.
Yeah, who do you have as number 3? Liverpool, you said, sorry.
Yes, my winner.
Yep.
Once again, drum roll, Manchester City.
So boring, Monish, so boring. I've got Arsenal winning the league.
My team is boring. Why I think Manchester City is going to win?
Yep. Why do you think Manchester City is going to win?
Because
I'll tell you why Arsenal is going to win after that.
They're unfortunately the new Manchester United in certain ways. They might be a little less driven. I'm not sure. I hope they're not. The question is, how driven is Kevin De Bruyne? But again, Guardiola really knows how to mix his players, how to match his players. Last season, they started with relying on Eric Ten Hag, on Erling Haaland. And somewhere in the middle, you kept hearing some comments from some press conferences, some comments from Kevin De Bruyne, from uh, Pep Guardiola mentioning that he needs to adjust to their style of play. They are over reliant on him. They shouldn't keep passing to him, and then they worked it out. And if you noticed, I think they used the Premier League as a lab to win the Champions League because they kept trying different ways of winning. They used to win every game, but we would try. Okay, let's try something like this. Let's try winning with Jack Grealish. Let's not pass. I mean, I'm not saying they did it, but when things were going tough, they tried different ways of winning. Pep Guardiola, the thing that changed for him last season was there were different ways. There was Bernardo Silva, there was Riyad Mahrez. There were different sort of creators. They were counter-attacking great players for like Kevin De Bruyne and Haaland. There was Jack Grealish. So what he really had last season was multiple options of trying to score goals, of trying to win games. He could move John Stones up. He could do anything he wanted, and he has cover in every position. Arsenal is a good team. Declan Rice is gonna really change things for them. They have Odegaard. What Manchester City has is a goal machine in Haaland, a target man, and whatever happens, even if Haaland is not playing well, you just put him up front. The defenders are occupied there. The others can play well. All right. Arsenal don't have a goal machine. They just don't. They have goals. They have fantastic midfielders, attacking midfielders who have goals. Secondly, if they have a goal machine, those midfielders or those attacking midfielders, those wingers will not get chances to score goals. If you notice, Rashford doesn't play well as soon as there's a proper centre forward. When Martial is the centre forward, he plays well because.
I agree with you that Arsenal's biggest problem is going to be that centre forward striker role, but they have Jesus, and when he plays, he can be really good, and he fits into that Arsenal system really well because he plays a bit further into midfield and brings in Saka and Martinelli into that inverted winger role in which they can attack the goal a lot more. I think Jesus is really good for that, and Havertz, to be fair, is a decent fallback option in that role. By no means is he good enough to be a starting number 9 for anybody in the league.
A fantastic player, but doesn't finish.
Yeah,
a fantastic player, no doubt about it.
I don't think he's good enough to be a starting number 9 for anybody, but as a fallback sort of second choice, he's really good. They also have Nketiah who can do that role, and I think they're still going to be reliant on Odegaard, Martinelli and Saka to pitch in goals a lot more, which is fair, which is honestly how Liverpool won the league over Man City the last time around. So and Declan Rice is going to be a Rolls Royce in midfield, in my opinion. I think he is going to level up that Arsenal midfield so much more, and to the point, I can actually tell you, in my opinion, whoever has a better season out of Declan Rice and Kevin De Bruyne will win their team the league. So I think if Declan Rice is going to have a better season than De Bruyne, I think it's going to be Arsenal winning the league.
I'll just tell you this much. If Kevin De Bruyne is driven enough, I don't think he's going to take his foot off the gas. And if he doesn't, it's no doubt going to be City. Because of the fact that they have how do I put this? They have 2 players for every position, and their second player is better than the best player in the 3rd or 4th team in our list.
Yeah, they have this God squad, which has not been seen before in the Premier League, but honestly, every dynasty comes to an end at some point. The Manchester United team, which was notorious for winning Premier League titles back to back, even they have not won the Premier League 4 times in a row. So if Manchester City are going to win it this year, they're going to be better than the Manchester United team of the past. I think that's a very triggering statement for you, Monish, but still.
No, it's not really. No, there's nothing wrong with that. That's why I try to tell you. So I am trying to look at things openly, but the fact is that Manchester United kept winning as long as Ferguson was there, even with teams that nobody else would have won with. Even with teams, we were wondering how they won.
I don't think Manchester United had the God squad that that City have now. I think their first 11 were very comparable compared to those years. They brought a lot of superstars and really good players,
No,
but they didn't have like the second choice, third choice players that Man City have.
I'll tell you what used to also happen was as soon as players were playing United, teams were playing United, they would probably rest their best players because they had an other important game that they could win. There were things happening like that. There were times when people would just come to Old Trafford and like, let's try to get a point.
Yeah,
The style was very different because they had already lost the game in their head because they were like, okay, this is going to happen. Manchester City is now having that aura.
Yeah.
Arsenal has to fight for it. Even now,
definitely.
anyone playing Arsenal thinks like maybe we can sneak in a few points there. There is always something that can go wrong. They are Arsenal at the end of the day because they have lost so many probable title challenges from winning positions. Everyone is just like, Arsenal is going to go down.
Yeah,
So
for them to
there has
get
to be
that
some,
aura, they need to win something for sure.
Win consistently. City has that aura right now. It might be broken by Arsenal. Arsenal look like the best placed squad because they have a team, they have a vision, they have fantastic youngsters, they have really good players, they have a coach who knows, who really understands football, who's good. So let's see how this goes.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of our predictions. Monish, do you want to
Yes.
tell me your top 4 again? So
Yeah. So my top 4: number 1, Manchester City; number 2, Arsenal; number 3 is Liverpool; number 4 is Manchester United.
okay, and for me it's Arsenal, Manchester City, Chelsea, and Newcastle United. Just tell me your 5, 6, 7, Monish.
My 5, 6, 7 are, let me just read it out. Yeah, 5 Newcastle, 6 Tottenham, 7 Chelsea.
Okay, I've got Aston Villa, Manchester United, and Liverpool. And who are the teams battling for relegation, Monish? Your bottom 3.
My bottom 3: Sheffield United, Wolves, and Luton.
Okay, yep, I've got the same 3: Wolves, Luton, and Sheffield United.
Okay, so
that
just
brings us to the end of our predictions, Monish. Do you want
yeah,
to
a
talk
few
about
more
anything
things.
more?
Okay, what do you think who's going to be the top scorer this season?
I think Erling Haaland. I don't think there's any competition for him. We can probably discuss the second top scorer if that makes more sense.
I think Haaland, but I think this is going to have competition. And I think I'm saying this mostly to spite you. I think Harry Kane is going to be there as well in the mix.
Okay,
Maybe from
fair
Manchester United.
Well, if he stays in the Premier League, I think he's always
There's
going
no
to be
doubt.
up on the
There's
goal. So
no
it's-
doubt about it.
I'm just accounting for him leaving to Bayern Munich. So for me, it's going to be probably second Mo Salah because I'm expecting Kane to leave.
So you expect Salah to actually do well this season as well?
Yeah, he's done it for years in a row. Even last season, he scored more than 20 goals.
Exactly. I thought last season it's done. He's down. He's out, and he just came back. And I think he still has another season in him because he ended it really well.
Yeah. Yep. We have prolonged this podcast quite a bit, and thanks anybody who has been listening to us. This is
Doubtful.
obviously our first shot at it.
Yes.
So there will be mistakes.
Slightly
Please do
sleep
point it out.
deprived. Been blabbering a bit. So sorry for any of the mistakes that we have made. Any mispronunciations or.
We welcome all the feedback that you guys can give us because that will hopefully help us improve.
Yes,
So engage with us, leave a comment, leave a like.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everybody. This has been the Global Footballer Podcast. You'll find us on YouTube and Spotify. See you later next time. Thank you.